Hi, I'm Macy.
And I'm Missy.
We're best friends
and business partners. And each week, we're going to bring you a quote that inspires us, and we're going to talk about it.
Join us as we break down our favorite impactful messages for leadership and share how you can apply them to lead with confidence and purpose.
Get ready for a fun and authentic journey into leadership, life, and everything in between.
Well, happy Tuesday, bestie.
Well, happy Tuesday to you.
Tuesdays are quickly becoming my favorite day of the week.
Mine too. I mean, most people love Fridays.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. I love a good Friday. But Tuesdays are becoming my favorite, I think.
I know. I love it. Okay. So as we share this week's quote, there's something we have to let our listeners in on.
Yes,
because
we do.
This is going to be a sports quote, but we are not sporty girls.
We absolutely are not, but we are girls, Macy, who love a good sports analogy, aren't we?
Oh my God, I love sports analogies. I just don't love the act of sporting.
I get it.
So we are going to bring our guest on, Tiffany. We want you to introduce yourself, but we also want to know, are you team sporty or not sporty?
Okay.
So Tiffany, go ahead. Introduce yourself. Let our listeners know who you are, a little bit about you, your company, what you do, and team sporty or team not so sporty.
All right. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm Tiffany Lowe. I'm a managing director of a family-owned and operated business called MI-SHER, which is Mike and Cheryl. It's my dad and my mom.
And I just have to say, I have known Tiffany for years, and I did not know about her company.
There you go.
I love that. I love that.
Well, because it goes with the theme of your outfits, I have to tell you, I'm glad I lost that vote because I was 12 when we picked the business name, and I wanted it to be the Parts Palace. So I rock MI-SHER every day, right?
That is funny, Tiffany.
We would love it. We would love the Parts
Parts
Palace. We could work at the Parts Palace.
That's where I'd go shopping for parts, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, so we started with 2 Napa Auto Parts stores in the DFW area in 96 and 98. And then in the early 2000s, we got into industrial equipment and oil and gas, driving inventory services and supply chain solutions. So it's a little bit different, but I am officially 3rd generation of mechanic repair.
Love that.
It's an interesting industry. So I'm with you. Sports analogies are great. My husband's a big sports fan, but I'm not. I was never on a team that did anything with balls. Like football, soccer, basketball, like none of that.
No. Yay, so she's one of us.
Yay, we totally
sporty.
Sporty, like ran from balls literally because I'd been hit from them. So we are all on the same page.
I'm going to go a little bit off subject here, a little bit, Tiffany, just to kind of give you. So Missy and I met about 10 years ago. So we grew up very differently, like different parts of the world. And we have so many similarities, and the non-sporty and getting hit in the head with a softball, we both had that happen, and neither one of us like to ride bikes. That's not common. So maybe you're a girl like us. You're not sporty. Maybe you don't like to ride a bike either.
No, I don't like to ride bikes, but I did grow up around racing cars.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
That's a little different. It's a little different, but it goes with my industry. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, you could come sit by us anytime, Tiffany.
Anytime. Tiffany, were you ever called over when they said Red Rover? Because Macy and I weren't.
No.
Yeah, we would have to create our own team that had nothing to do with being called over because they were not called.
Funny.
We'd be the 3 of us. We could go play, and the 3 of us would be in the corner, like talking about what would they sell at Parts Palace.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
All right, Miss, let's go with the quote. What's the quote today?
Let's jump in. Here's our quote, ladies. A player who makes a team great is more valuable than a great player. So let's talk about it. Tiffany, you go first. What does this quote mean to you? A player who makes a great team is more valuable than a great player.
So I love this quote because it resonates with the best leadership advice I ever got from my dad. I was 16 and I got promoted to manager at a Sonic drive-in. And I'm like, what makes a good manager and how do you lead well? And he's like, there's no such thing as a perfect manager or a perfect employee, that you build a team of people that balance each other in strengths and
Yes.
weaknesses. And so that's really what I do every day, is just identify strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, and encourage people and build a team out of it.
Yeah,
Ooh, that
that's
is
so
so
good. And
good.
it's 16 to get that advice. My gosh, what a blessing, right? Like a lot of people don't have that advice and they're well into their, let's say they're seasoned leaders and
Yes.
managers and have never
But it
received that
is.
advice.
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
How do you lead well?
Yeah. Missy, what do you think about the quote?
So when I think about it, and it's actually another quote that really comes to mind when I think about it, but it's that talent's not enough, right?
Mm,
And so it's not about just being a great player. That's important. That's going to be part of the team's success, but it's more important to be valuable in a way that makes the team great, where you're the one
yeah.
that is lifting everyone else up, and you're the encourager, and you're taking those who don't have as much talent as someone else and cheering them on, and you are, you know, having conversations with those that do have the great talent and letting them know how much they're appreciated. And I think it's about the person who brings the team together with the spirit of success.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
What
I
about
think
you, Mace?
yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the quote really shows that leadership isn't always about being the best at something, right? Like as a leader,
Right.
you don't have to be the best, but it's about bringing the best out of people. It's about bringing that collective potential of the group together. I mean, honestly, I think the best leaders, they are not the best at everything, right? They've just really learned and leaned on the strengths that makes everybody great together. Missy and I are really big fans of strengths-based leadership, which is finding the strengths that people are naturally gifted or naturally wired and honing in on those to really help them develop
And
themselves and
I
the
think
team.
that's
So,
what Tiffany's dad was teaching her at such a young
absolutely.
age, right? It was
Yeah.
strengths based leadership before it had a name.
Yeah. So that's what I think. I think it's about the leader not having to have it all together, but finding the right people.
Ooh, I so agree. And I also believe there's a level of trust and empowerment that comes into play here too.
Sure. I mean, as a leader, you have to trust the ability of others, right? You have to empower them to do the job or take ownership of what it is that you're asking them to do.
Yeah. I mean, Macy, we've taught organizations before that not everyone on the team is a team player, right?
Oh, for
And
sure.
and there are some reasons why they may not be, right? Maybe it's their ego that keeps them from being a great player. Maybe they're just naive to the benefits of being part of a team. So, all right, Tiffany. So here's a question for you. Um, what do you do when you've identified someone on your team that, for all intensive purposes, perhaps is a great player as an individual, but they aren't necessarily a great team player?
Mm.
So I have one of these.
Currently, you do, you mean?
I currently
Currently?
do. He has been with us 19 years. And it goes back to that strengths and weaknesses. Do the strengths, can you outweigh the weakness, or can you compartmentalize it? Can
Mm.
you minimize the impact? And so he's been with us 19 years. And he has an office all by himself instead of kind of in a collaborative room. And he has a little bit different schedule. So he's usually here about 4:30 in the morning, and he's gone at 3:30 in the afternoon. Gives him some time before everybody else gets to the office to kind of be alone.
Mm-hmm.
But it works, because if I was to replace him, it would require two, if not three people.
Yeah.
And so he's a very diligent worker. He just doesn't like all the conversation and just kind of being distracted and being interrupted. So he's a little bit like Mario's Bowser, walking around, just kind of a little prickly, for
A
the
little
most
prickly. He's just hardwired that way.
yes.
Yeah.
But it's really funny. He had worked for us probably 15 years living in an apartment by himself. And all of a sudden he moved to the country, and now he has 80 goats and over 100 chickens. And you're like, you never know somebody, you just don't really know people or what's going on in their life. But now he comes to work on Fridays in his overalls and he's getting a little bit more of a smile on his face.
Oh, that's funny. I have a
Love it.
question that just came to me because of based on what you said about this particular gentleman. How do the other people react? Because we've had this come up before in some companies that we work with that people have different rules, right? Like, oh, he gets to come in late or he doesn't have to participate or he gets to come in early. So two questions. How has the rest of the team reacted to that? And how, as a leader, do you handle it almost preemptively so there doesn't become this animosity or like, well, who is he and why does he get special treatment? Because we have come across that in some of the companies that we've trained. So just curious, just you mentioned it. So I just wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah, so I think it would be a little bit different if it was a warehouse worker or if it was, a driver where there's several people in the same position.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to take his strengths and give him responsibilities that really complemented those and those responsibilities that nobody else really wanted or was really interested in.
Okay.
Um, but also having that tenure and knowing that he had been with us a long time, he had been in several roles. We do a lot of promoting from within, and so we teach our people, it is about values, and you're going to get promoted from within when you stick it out and you're a little bit flexible. And so in a family business, we wear a lot of hats,
Right.
um,
Yes.
but we've been able to find some balance there.
Okay, good. I was just curious. Like I said, it came up. It was something that Missy and I actually dealt with not that long ago that someone asked us, like, my people are coming to me because the manager comes in late. And how do I tell my people that they can't come in late when the manager is coming in late? And what I said was, stay in your lane. There's probably an agreement that they had. Okay. So go ahead, Missy. Were you going to say
I was
something?
just going to say everybody wants things to be fair, so to speak.
Right.
And we're all individuals when we come on a team, and sometimes there have to be different agreements made and exceptions made. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So curious about this because you mentioned culture, you mentioned values. How, as a leader, and you can use yourself as an example because you've been leading for a long time, how does a leader create a culture that values collaboration over individualism? And we'll put that gentleman aside. We'll focus on the rest of your team, right? How do you, as a leader, if it's something you value, how do you create that culture of
So
collaboration?
collaboration is one of my favorite words, and facilitating collaboration, whether it's within a team or with vendors, customers, suppliers, problem solutions, I think that's a big deal. I think the hardest part for people today is being able to admit where they have weaknesses, being able
Mm,
to admit where they could use some help. And so everybody wants to run around going, hey, I got extra, I got extra. But if you don't have a need, then you can't connect with anyone. And so a lot of what we do in our collaboration as teamwork is, hey, you're really good at this, but can you also tell me what you're not so good at?
Ooh, I
Because
like that.
that leads people to be more welcome and more open
mm.
to leaning on someone with that strength. When everybody's kind of running around with their masks on and their jackets covering things up, I mean, it's hard to create that collaboration. So that is definitely the first step is the humility that it takes to really just be vulnerable about, yeah, I'm really good at this, which means I'm not great at this.
Right.
And I'll tell you, one of the things I've dealt with in a lot of people is your strength can often become your biggest weakness.
So
Yes.
And
talk
so
about that.
where is
Talk about that. Yeah.
that balance point of, yeah, you are really good at being a visionary, but you're horrible at details because you're a great at being a visionary.
Right.
Yeah.
We know that to be true, don't we, Missy?
Yes, we do. And I think honestly, it's what we say all the time. Like if you want to create that culture, you've got to reward the behavior you want to see, right? I mean,
Right.
if the team or only some members on the team are collaborating, you need to reward those members in hopes and expectation that the others are going to understand, hey, this is the culture that we're
Right.
creating here.
Yeah. I also think too, it's about modeling the behavior you want to see, right? If as the leader, you're not collaborating or working well with others and you're always in your back office and you're not asking for help or you're not bringing other people in, they're going to see that. And then you can't expect them to do it if you're not embracing that mentality, right?
Yeah. And some organizations have, I would call it a twofold problem, right? They have a siloed organization or siloed teams. And then what we were talking about before, they don't have that culture of teamwork. It's just not there.
Yeah. And I think those are two different things, right? I mean, breaking down silos is a specific tactic or strategy, we would say, that really is used to create collaborative culture so that you get cross departmental, right? People from all different departments working together.
Yeah.
And then creating a collaborative culture, that's when the entire team can transform. That includes breaking down the silos along with initiatives, because as the leader, again, you have to build trust, you want to expand, you want to improve your communication and teamwork, like all across the board, right? I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Tiffany, I know you, and I know that teamwork is something that you value so much. It is your personality, and it's shining bright. But what have you done specifically in your organization to break down those type of silos, as we're calling them, right? We've trained so many companies that the nature of their business, it really is just siloed.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hey there. It's time to stop spinning your wheels and start, well, crushing your goals.
Listen, if you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or like you're just not making progress, don't worry, we've got you. That's why we created the Goal Crushing Workshop.
This workshop isn't just about setting goals. It's about creating a step-by-step plan to actually achieve them. Using our goal-getting system, we will help you cut through the clutter, focus your energy, and build a strategy that works for you.
Whether it's personal growth, career aspirations, leadership development, it's your chance to stop dreaming and start doing.
So head on over to impactfulmessages.com/goal crushing and sign up. Enter the code Let's Talk About It at checkout for big savings. That's Let's Talk About It, all one word, no apostrophe.
Now's the time to turn your goals into reality.
It really is just siloed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. It's interesting being in a generational business. I can look back to, when my dad was, managing, and it was this disconnect between sales and operations, and they didn't have cell phones and they weren't in constant contact.
Right.
And today, those things are so intertwined. There is a lot of contact, whether it's shared inboxes or messaging systems. We have weekly team calls. We have monthly team lunches, just trying to get everybody together.
Love that.
More of where we're seeing the silos is between more of the labor force and the office personnel. And it's been interesting in our business and in parts. I'd have a guy that 15 years ago, he was out in the labor side because mechanics came in and there was a lot of connection there. Well, now everything's email. Everything is order online. And so I've got some guys that, they did work in the grind and now they're in an office. And so we do a lot of cross training. Hey, go spend a day in this department, go spend a day in this department. Again, when you get to office personnel that are putting in data, and then you get kind of into the labor force, which is execution. There's the execution side is always, the data's not right. And then you go in there and they're like, well, I put everything in there and they didn't execute it correctly. And so just being able to say, hey, you're going to spend, a day or two in each other's worlds so that you can
love that.
Their own pain points has been huge for us.
That is so smart. If you're taking notes, listeners, write that down because we love cross training, but I love the reason why you're cross training. A lot of companies
walk in someone else's shoes.
Right. A lot of companies will cross train in case someone's out or someone leaves, right? Then someone else could do their job. But this is like, hey, you have to understand what I mean when I say this and why what you do is so important to what I do. So I just love that. Okay. So I do have a sports analogy because, again, we love a good sports analogy. So I have a good one for this, and it's one of the greatest sportsmen in history, Michael Jordan. And if you have not watched The Last Dance, even if you are a sports fan or not, it is a great, great documentary. So in this documentary, they talk about how in early in his career, Michael Jordan was a high scoring player, right? That's what he was known for. But he struggled to lead the Chicago Bulls to a championship. But when he embraced the team needs to come first, and when he started trusting other players like Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, and he started focusing on the coach's system, the Bulls actually won 6 NBA championships. So I think that that's such a good example of this quote, how Jordan's shift from great player to team player transformed not just basketball, but it really did transform his legacy and the entire basketball franchise, I think. So I just think, again, having a sports analogy in this one was a good one.
It is a good one. I have another example.
Okay,
right?
good.
Like Steve Jobs. He was for sure a visionary, but early in his career, he was known for like being controlling and overly focused on his ideas. And after he returned to Apple in I think it was like the late 90s, he emphasized collaboration, empowering teams to bring their expertise to projects like the iPhone and the Mac. And when this happened, Apple's culture of that culture of innovation, it thrived because Jobs realized that elevating others produced better results than focusing solely on his own personal genius.
That's so good. Tiffany, do you recall a time in your career when teamwork made a bigger impact than individual performance? Like, do you have an example of that?
Oh, absolutely. We've had, in 28 years, we've had 4 very significant downturns where we were afraid we were going to survive as a business. And, going back to that vulnerability, you can't be the leader out front pretending that everything is going to go okay. You really have to be vulnerable with your people and say, hey, these are our concerns. This is what's going on. Our people rallied in all 4 of those downturns, that every single time we have come back stronger.
Wow, that's amazing.
That speaks more than anything to the teamwork.
Sure.
Especially being able to survive. We are, as an S Corp in 28 years, and the volume that we do and the number of employees we have, we're in the 0.001% of family businesses that have survived. And all credibility goes to the team when it's the most challenging. But that requires that as a leader, you don't pretend you have all the answers.
Yeah.
So good.
Tiffany, how many employees do you have?
We have 72.
Okay.
Wow. Macy and I always
really
talk about that vulnerability piece, how important that is for a leader to have, especially in building trust. So good. So, all right. So I've got a question for you, Tiffany, kind of on the other side of the spectrum, right?
Okay.
Have you ever seen on your team or been part of a team where like one person's individual brilliance was actually a barrier to success?
Ooh, that's good.
So confession. So my personality, my favorite quote is, "Don't tell me the sky's the limit," because I know there's footprints on the moon.
Right.
And so
I
love that.
I am
that,
go,
she says
go.
that a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good one.
And so I've had to learn that about myself. I'm a visionary. And so one of the books I have to recommend is part of the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And there's a second book called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about the balance between a visionary and an integrator. I can have 20 ideas a day. I can't take my business and follow each of these 20 ideas a day, or we just won't get any momentum. And so there was a point in our growth where I was just trying to do everything. And so being able to put someone in place, and today that's the board, is more of an integrator role. It helped significantly just control those, prioritize those. One of my favorite visuals is, I don't need to be steering the ship. You don't want me behind the wheel 50 hours a week, because every time I see something, I'm going to turn, right?
Squirrel.
Up in the crow's nest. I want to be watching for, the bird carrying a leaf and say, hey, I think there's land that way. And so, yes, I've had to learn that one. That you have to submit everything to the team. It doesn't matter how many great ideas you have. It only matters how far you can go together.
I love how aware you are of who you are, right? Like you are a leader who knows that you belong in the crow's nest, not driving the
Yep.
car because you'll drive the team off the road. Okay. How have you seen teamwork evolve in your career?
That's another good one. Again, before technology, everything was very like a handoff. I think
Mm,
of the sport of soccer, even though we're not sports people, right? There's one ball and it goes from one person to another person to another person. And so teamwork always kind of looks like that. I think today, with technology and compartmentalization and just even things like automation, you're not passing the same ball from one person to another. And so teamwork has been more about just creating relationships, checking on each other, being able to come around and say, hey, how are you doing? How can I encourage you? What's going on in your life? Do you need help? My dad's the first one to walk around, and if the trash needs taken out, he'll take the trash out, because it kind of sets this tone that, we're all in this together. And so teamwork has become more about encouraging each other in life,
mm.
than it has really been, can we score?
Right. And that's
Um,
okay. I mean, teamwork is what it is, right? And
yeah,
you have to work together as a team. And I love that you notice that things are changing over time, but you allow, for that margin of error.
yeah.
So, okay, two more questions as we kind of wrap up. So, as a leader, how do you handle situations where team players might feel overshadowed by high performers because they could be two different people?
Again, I think
Such
it's
a
been
great
the theme
question.
of this is just really everybody on our team knows that we know our strengths and weaknesses,
Hmm.
right? And so that helps because, we put high performers out front and we talk about how they're, producing sales. But if we're not talking about what they're not good at, then we're kind of mismanaging the bar.
Mm,
And then going around to people that maybe aren't superstars, but they're the most dependable, they're the most consistent, they're the reliability. And so really you're championing them because you couldn't do it without them.
right.
And
They're
so,
that life support.
yes,
Yes, that's a
yes.
great, yeah.
It
Yeah.
really comes to us to give them that affirmation that what they're doing and who they are has value to the organization, and to the team. But that's on us to make sure that we are breathing life and we are affirming that each person matters and that one person doesn't matter more than the others, and trying to keep that perspective.
Yeah, and I would say, and Missy, I
Amazing.
know you're going to agree, like the only way to do that is to connect with them and to
Yep.
know their strengths and their weaknesses and to encourage the connection. Okay, so I already feel like I know the answer to this
I do
because
too. I
I
know.
know you, but I'm going to ask anyway. If we were betting women, we would know the answer, but I still want to ask it. Who in your life has been the best example of a team player, and what did you learn from? I'll just say, what did you learn from him?
Yes, yes. Yes, so that's obviously my dad. He's my hero, but he's a legend and he represents the American dream.
Mm,
His dad had a shop. There was 8 kids. His older brothers worked there. So he went to work for the Napa Auto Parts store as a delivery driver at 17.
wow.
He had a 24-year career with corporate Napa, just continuing to do the next right thing and continuing to learn and grow and just stick with something. And then he ended up in headquarters, and he missed people and relationships and customer service. And so he retired from the corporate side and became an independent store owner. And it's inspiring to me. It's inspiring to our people, to say, hey, we promote from within, because here's this guy, my dad, who, he started his career just hoping that he could prevent food insecurity for his family,
Yeah,
because
Wow.
that was something he
right.
experienced. And so to look at him, 52 years later and all the success we've had, and I got the opportunity to look at him here a couple months ago and say, for the next 2 generations, you can be confident that no one in our family is going to experience food insecurity. And so,
Yeah.
he's a legend, but because he never gave up, and he was constantly aware of people around him, and he's just awesome.
And he's passed all those great lessons to you because you just radiate all of that, everything 100%. You're sharing.
And we hope we get to meet him one day because as I said, we've known you for years and you always have, I know how much he means to you and I would just love to meet him because he has developed such a great leader in you as well.
Yes. All right, listeners. So for today, if you only take away one thing from this episode, let it be this. A great player might deliver standout performances, but a team-oriented individual elevates everyone, creating a culture of shared success, and I would say lasting impact.
Yeah, and this speaks to the heart of leadership, right? I mean, really building an environment where collective potential thrives over personal ambition. It's about recognizing the success of the team. Tiffany did a great job talking about that. Often outweighs the accomplishments of any single member.
Yes, so good.
Yes, so this week we want to encourage you, our listeners, to identify one way you can pass the ball. See what I did there?
A little sports pun.
Yeah, whether it's mentoring someone, sharing credit, or stepping back a little bit to let someone else shine.
And for our listeners, we've got a special gift. To lead a thriving team, it's essential that everyone, yourself included, has the right attitude about teamwork. So what we have for you is that a resource that we called the Teamwork Attitude Checklist. And it's a simple tool to help you and your team really reflect on your personal attitudes toward teamwork and see where you might grow. Yeah, we call that a checkup from the neck up, don't we, Mayce?
Yeah, or you might have an opportunity to have an attitude adjustment, right? You might need one. So this will give you the way to do that. Well, how are they finding it?
You'll find the link for the gift in the show notes, or you can email us at connect@impactfulmessages.com and we'll send you the resource.
Tiffany, if our listeners want to stay connected to you, if there's anything that you're up to or if they just want to learn from you, how will they find you?
Yeah, the best place to find me is going to be on LinkedIn under Tiffany B. Lowe.
And that's a Lowe with an E. Yeah, and we'll put it in the show notes too for our listeners.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up today, Tiffany, what is your favorite leadership quote?
My favorite leadership quote is teamwork makes the dream work.
Oh, yes, it so does. What a perfect quote. Well, we just want to thank you so much for being here. You have added so much value. You are such an amazing leader, such a fun guest, and we're just excited that you said yes to this. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And to our listeners, please don't forget, if you love this podcast, leave us a 5-star review, share it with your friends, your coworkers, and all of the leaders in your life.
And do you have a favorite leadership quote? Let us know that too, and we may spotlight it in a future episode.
We'll be back next week with another quote and more leadership insights. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to
talk about it. Bye, bestie. Bye, Tiffany.
Bestie. Thanks for coming, Tiffany. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this show, please show us some love by clicking the 3 dots to download the podcast, leave us a 5-star rating on your podcast app, and talk about it with other leaders to help them find the show from any of the major podcast apps. We'd love for you to follow us on social media too. Impactful with an M _ messages on Instagram and Impactful Messages on LinkedIn.